Afghanistan, I got complete culture shock seeing other people and how they were living in a third world country with houses made out of mud and no air, no electricity, just the structure of their lifestyle, where men ranked, where women were ranked. It was really hard to see as a woman where I was and then to see where they were at. But between tensions, frustrations, lack of sleep, the dust storms, it was an experience I'll never forget or regret.
It has to be basically all of my deployments that I had with while I was in the Army, but not realizing how the deployments were affecting me and affecting my family. Every time I'd come back from a deployment, I'd be like, yeah, let's get this over with. It's time to, check the box and let's get out of here for the leave. But it was the psychological part in me that was not being taken care of. I was taking care of my physical body, but I wasn't taking care of my psychological body. Come to find out after getting into counseling, been diagnosed with PTSD, depression, anxiety, insomnia.
I enlisted into the Air Force as a missile maintainer. So I worked on ICBMs in North Dakota, worked in missile silos all across North Dakota, and I did that for about 6 years. I became a human resource manager, manpower, and did that for 6 years in South Carolina, and then here at Tinker in Oklahoma.
I'd served 29 years in the United States Air Force as a loadmaster on a C-141 Starlifter and a C-130 Hercules. From 89 to 94, I was stationed at Rhein-Main Air Base, Germany, which is just outside of Frankfurt, Germany. One of our regular missions was to go into Saudi Arabia. I happened to be there August 2nd, the day that Saddam Hussein decided to take over Kuwait. One more memorable events was I got to see a Scud be intercepted by a Patriot battery, and you don't really forget that. And then right before the ground invasion happened, we were moving the 18th Airborne Corps from locations in Saudi Arabia to their jump-off point when they did the left hook maneuver, when they went around the Republican Guard and then ended the war in 4 days.
I was in the United States Air Force for 10 years. Originally enlisted in October 2006, shortly after high school, and I left as a E5 or staff sergeant. We were on a rotator, and that may not sound like much, but it's basically just a couple of days of plane rides and train rides and bus rides to get over to in country in Afghanistan. So we were up anywhere from 23, 27 hours, some guys even longer. And then once we got there, we had to not only establish our work center, but get the planes ready for the night's mission. And that took a lot. We had dudes that were up for probably 4 or 5 days straight, making sure that not only the mission was still capable, but that the following day that we would still have a place to work out of. And there's a lot of tools involved with setting up aircraft, and a lot of logistics involved, and it was pretty wild to watch it all happen. But just the attitude that went behind it, those long hot days, and we still made it happen with I wouldn't say a smile, but we definitely laughed about it at the end.
One of my most memorable experiences is just before I was getting ready to go to boot camp. It turned out that both of my older brothers were home on leave. They were both career Navy enlisted men, and when you're getting ready to go to basic training, you're fairly apprehensive. I was 17 years old, and one of my older brothers took me aside and said, "You don't need to worry. Just do what you're told. Don't volunteer for anything, and never do anything to disgrace your uniform. And if you do those things, you'll be okay." And so I thought about his advice many times while I was in basic training. It was great advice.
My brothers and I did serve, all in different capacities, and I was, I don't know whether you consider it the short straw, the long straw. I had the orders for Southeast Asia, and I spent a year there as an artillery lieutenant, about 3 months on a fire support base and 9 months in the jungle supporting an infantry company directly. And That's where I was when I processed out to come back home.
I had the opportunity to be an officer of the deck. This is the guy in charge of an aircraft carrier. In charge for the captain, because the captain cannot be all places at all times. The USS George H.W. Bush was a brand new aircraft carrier out of Norfolk, Virginia, and so I was one of the first officers of the deck to take her underway. And one night I found myself out in the middle of the ocean off the east coast of the United States, just me and my bridge team. And it was dark and it was quiet, and there's 4,000 people asleep, except for the 12 or 14 of us. And I've got $4 billion that I'm in charge of. 1,111 feet, 4 inches. 96,000 tons of American diplomacy out there floating alone in a dark ocean. And I thought to myself, is there anything better about American liberty and American freedom than 300 million people asleep in their beds right now, knowing that I'm out here doing this right now? And it was a critical moment in my career that I really am doing what I should be doing.
I've enjoyed serving with the Air Force and the other services, providing assistance to the Air Force members on the ground and supporting the work that they do. The situation that made the biggest impact on me was the coming of the B-2 aircraft, one of my favorite platforms in the Air Force inventory. Watching that technology come to fruition and take off and become part of the U.S. fleet was exciting for me. Even today, it's exciting as it flies over football games, baseball games, and shows people in the United States the kind of platforms that we take and support the U.S. with.
I was in the United States Navy from 1963 to 1967. August of 1964, I was aboard the USS Pollux, and we joined the destroyers Turner Joy and Maddox in the Tonkin Gulf, where they sunk some PT boats. And it was a result of that action on August 3rd and 4th that Congress passed the Tonkin Gulf Resolution, which allowed President Johnson to put troops on the ground in Vietnam. So I was there at the very beginning.
It's a thank you. It's a firm handshake from the community that says we haven't forgot about what you did and we appreciate you for it.
The more support that we can give for each other, the more support that we can receive from the public, the more support and benefits that we receive from Veterans Administration, I think does the nation good and is fully needed.
I think it's important to recall how we got to where we are. And I think Veterans Day helps remind us how we came to this place where we are in the world today.
Mostly it's just to reflect back on what I've done, what other veterans have done, and just, how it's helped keep America great.
For those that are out there, please take the time, talk with your spouse, go see counseling, come and see me, find me here on campus, and we'll just sit and talk.
Veterans deserve, in my opinion, special treatment. They have sacrificed, their families have sacrificed to serve the United States. They have helped keep all of us free.
Even though it was just one person in a giant team, I felt like I was making a difference. And there's many before me that made that possible. For me to be able to serve, for anybody to be able to be on those yellow footprints. It's a warm handshake, it's a big hug, it's a giant thank you.